I remember when I first bought this book back shortly after I got my camera, because back then the plan was to become a photographer, learn the camera, do what I gotta do. And I bought a couple of books and I started reading, and I couldn't get past the first chapter. The first chapter was about equipment, and it talks about everything from the different parts of your camera, how to recognize the DSLR and the mirrorless and the sensor cameras and the, you know, all kinds of stuff. And then exposure was the second chapter. And for the longest time, I could not get past exposure. Even to this day, when I read this book, I always go back to exposure, because why is it so difficult to learn? I mean, there is just so much about exposure to know. And I went out the other day. I went to go practice and to take some pictures and do some shooting. And I visited, they call it Crofton Lake. I went out there. It was a beautiful place. And I took a couple of photos. Now, the sun was really bright, and they definitely look overly exposed. And it could have just been a simple fix, maybe adjusting the white balance or the lens filter, if I had a lens filter, which I don't have a lens filter. So but there's just so much to know. Like, I'm almost thinking, because the photos that I took, the ones that I was happy with, that I felt like, you know, were pretty decent shots that I wanted to save and work on, I edited on a computer and it came out pretty decent. But I'll be honest, I really didn't spend a lot of time at the time trying to adjust my exposure elements, because I thought, you know, through the lens that it looks pretty decent. But it wasn't until I actually got them home on a computer where I could see where they were a bit overexposed. And I just can't, it's just learning this exposure thing is like really, really difficult. And I'll give you an example. So I know the 3 elements of exposure. So let me just say that, and I'll give myself a pat on the back. But I'm having a hard time remembering what each of them represents, and being able to look for those in my photographs, or at least being able to focus my camera on those specific things when I'm taking a photograph. So what I'm finding out is that photography really requires a lot of patience, because you've got to be able to spend a little bit of time with your camera, like setting things up and just, you know, panning out the scene and getting your camera ready and getting things right before you start to take your pictures. I'm just going to keep working at it, and we'll see what happens. So I appreciate you guys coming along on this journey. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you on the next one.